Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Brittany Wallman, your moderator. I've covered the city of Fort Lauderdale for the Sun Sentinel on and off for about 20 years. I'm very pleased to be here. Let me briefly let you know the format. We're going to take each race separately, starting with spending about 50 minutes on the mayor's race. At roughly 7 p.m., we're going to move to the District 2 race, and at roughly 7:50, we will conclude the debates. The election is Tuesday, March 13th. If you plan to mail your ballot, and I would never trust my ballot to the mail service here. You want to know why, just read our recent story about the nearly 600 people who voted in the primary whose ballots did not make it across town in time. All Broward mail goes to Miami-Dade first, so just something to keep in mind. If you're going to mail your ballot, you should mail it as soon as possible. I've compiled a list of questions entirely from input from the public, so that has come in over the last couple months, and some even this evening. We will start with each candidate giving a 1-minute introduction, and then I'll pose the questions. The candidates will have 90 seconds to answer. We will have someone in the back that will hold a card up when they have 30 seconds left so they can wrap it up. And we'll allow the occasional rebuttal if need be, but I would ask the candidates to please keep those brief. And then at the conclusion of each segment, the candidate will have 2 minutes to wrap things up. I think we should go ahead and invite our mayoral candidates up to the stage now. Bruce Roberts and Jennifer Powell. Starting alphabetically.
Ask the question though before we start. Where is this person who's in the back of the room who's going to show us? Oh, it's right here.
Oh, it's in front of the room, I'm sorry. Oh, and I should note that if you go over your 90 seconds, there is a cowbell that I brought from home. I have an extra one here. Okay, we'll start with Bruce Roberts. Go ahead.
Okay, as you know, I'm Bruce Roberts, Vice Mayor, City of Fort Lauderdale. I've been in the commission for the past 9 years, and prior to that, I was your police chief for 6.5 years, and I've served this community and the police department for 35 years. I'm anxious to be your next mayor. I'm looking forward to the leadership I bring to the community, the problem-solving ability I lead to the community as we go into the future during these good times, but also some headwinds and troubled times. And with that, that's my introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me here tonight, and it's a pleasure to be with everyone here. I thought by now you're tired of hearing us speak. We've been talking and speaking and doing all we can to get our message out to the community. I want to thank my opponent and colleague, Bruce Roberts. I thought we ran a pretty good campaign, don't you think? And as we near the end, I'm hoping that the things that we've talked about have resonated with the community, the types of issues that I think we all face, the challenges, and I think that the message that I wish to bring to the community is that I want to be the mayor that's going to be listening to the people. The people's mayor, listening to the voices of each neighborhood, each community, and tonight we'll talk about those issues, and I hope we can together create a dialogue that will find answers for the challenges that we face ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's get right to the questions, and we will start with Dean answering first, and then we'll alternate. Let's talk about guns. This is a new topic since the primary, but after the shooting, questions started coming in about gun safety, whether there was support for arming school teachers, whether assault rifles should be banned, and then specifically to the city of Fort Lauderdale, whether the gun show should continue to take place in the city-owned War Memorial Auditorium. Could each of you please address whether you would support continuing the gun show at the city's auditorium?
How long do you have to answer? 1.5 minutes?
Yes, 90 seconds. Thank you. Dean?
Thank you. I think that the continuation of the gun show in Fort Lauderdale is it's a sin that we continue to allow that to happen. Ever since I returned to the commission in 2013, I have protested the fact that War Memorial Auditorium continues to host a show of guns, especially in a neighborhood and in an environment where children play and it's a residential community. It's totally inappropriate for that to happen, and every year, year after year, I ask that to be discontinued. Unfortunately, no one else on the commission during that time ever agreed with me. And it's my belief that time has come. We shouldn't have to wait for 17 children to die to know what to do, what the right thing is to do. And I proposed a resolution which everyone on the commission agreed to approve. It was a non-binding resolution which we sent to the state, to the governor and to the legislature, asking that assault weapons no longer be sold at War Memorial and that no one under the age of 21 should be allowed to buy assault weapons. And let's get started here in Fort Lauderdale. Let's set the example and let's no longer be the victim of gun shows here in Fort Lauderdale. Thank you.
Just to set the record straight, I have been on record saying that the gun show should not be in the park. It doesn't belong in the park. It's activity for children, and other activities like it does not belong in municipal parks. I also agree that we can ask that resolution, which actually was a copycat of the Sunrise resolution from a couple of years ago, on beseeching our legislators in Tallahassee to ban automatic weapon sales, rifle sales to individual AR-15s, assault rifles, and any weapons to people under 21, and also no high-capacity magazines. My experience as a police officer, I would not want to face those weapons myself. We don't want, although we train for that day in and day out, we don't want to face those weapons either. So I think that they should not be in the hands of anybody but military or police personnel. I also believe we need to do, and I brought this up at the last commission meeting, whatever we can do to harden our schools. I'd say we should have a school resource officer in any school. That's before the governor came on board with his clarification of what he wants for legislation in the future for school resource officers in all of our schools. That's a cost to us, but I think it's a cost obviously well worth the effort there because children are a priority. I also felt that we should also work with the school board to have a point of exit, one point of exit entry into our schools. Unfortunately nowadays, I believe they have to be treated like our airports right now until we can get this situation under control. So I'm with where we are on everybody. I think Dean and I agree pretty much on most of the aspects of how we get guns under control. But bear in mind, that's a state legislative responsibility. We as a municipality can only ask our legislators, and with your help going forward, like these wonderful students have done from Stoneman Douglas. I really think, and we see these incidents all, not like you.
That dreaded countdown.
And also, please mute or silence your cell phones. Okay, thank you. On the issue of city leadership, I've gotten a lot of different variations of the question. There's a lot of different opinions about city administration, but if you were elected, should we expect to see a shakeup of any kind or changes in city administration? Bruce?
There will be some. I would have to recommend some of those to the city manager. I am not, obviously I've been on record, and we'll say this again too, I'm not pleased with the performance of our city attorney. I think our city manager needs to be more effective in certain areas. I will say this, from his perspective, he has brought what we call process back to the city. In the old days, like before we got there 9 years ago, actually when we were our first term there was no process as far as how you measure outcomes with the city of Fort Lauderdale. So we developed a vision. Many of you may have participated in that vision process. It's 5 years old. That vision gives us a 5-year action plan and an annual action plan with which to budget. And with the help of our budget advisory board, we go forward on moving things in that direction, and we measure that. So he's brought a process there. I do think the city manager, quite frankly, is a bit tone deaf and listening to people and how they feel things. But he does bring a certain level of competence and professionalism to the city. I do see certain departments that I think that we need to shake up a little bit, and I will recommend that to the city manager or the next city manager. And one of those is transportation and mobility. I know they do a hard job and do a lot of work, but I think we need to be really focused on one of our top priorities. And we hear that from you all the time. I drive in it, and I see it all the time, and that's our traffic issues. And I think we need to be focused on the top priorities within that traffic and mobility division to address that particular issue.
Thank you. Dean?
Well, they say a fish stinks from the head down, right? As far as I'm concerned, we need a clean sweep of our administration. We need to replace our city manager, and we need to replace our city attorney, and we need to replace those department heads that have failed us these past several years. I have not heard one person throughout this campaign say that they support a continuation of this administration. It's time to move on. It's time to move on with fresh ideas, fresh vision, someone who is not going to remain as a leftover from a previous administration, and we'll never know where the dead bodies are buried. We need to find an opportunity here to be able to start with these, with a new perspective on the challenges that face us. How we're going to deal with the wave, how we're going to deal with infrastructure, how we're going to deal with traffic, how we're going to deal with homelessness, how we're going to deal with all these challenges that we have neglected over these past several years. I have not seen one visionary response from this city administration on how we're going to handle homelessness, other than to bulldoze them out of their existence. I've heard of no response from the city manager on how we're going to handle affordable housing, other than to ignore it. I've heard nothing out of this administration on how we're going to deal with the wave, except to just go along with what developers want. These are not answers. This is not leadership, and this is not the person that should be leading us into the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, yes.
Well, I think that's a big difference between Dean and I up here. And that's the leadership issue. It's not for the city manager to lead, it's for the commission to lead, to do your will. And yeah, he's been up there too for the past 6 years, with us for the past 9 years, but has never demonstrated any alternatives or given any issues relative difference, any different issues or solutions to the problems we just touched on. And those are what we have to face. I agree with you there. We have not solved all of them. I think we've made a lot of strides right now on solving the infrastructure issue. It's a shame it had to get to the point where it got. We take responsibility for that. We've all been there for those many years. And now it's moving in the right directions. But you need to have somebody that demonstrates leadership on the commission to build coalitions to solve particular problems and not finger point. It's easy to say, oh, there's a lot of problems out there and how bad things are, but how do you solve those problems if you're a teamwork?
Thank you. Dean, do you want to respond to that?
No, it's okay.
All right. Okay. Let's ask the follow the money question that someone provided. In my experience as a reporter, I find that even though it's legal, people don't like seeing their elected officials or candidates taking money from those who do business with the city or are hoping for a yes vote from the commission eventually and that sort of thing. They say if you want to know where a candidate's allegiance lies, follow the money. If we followed the money coming into your campaign, what would it tell us about you?
Who are you talking to?
I think it's Bruce's turn.
Then you follow the money, you'll see it coming from diverse areas. Yes, some money comes from lobbyists. A lot of the money comes from the residents in the neighborhood. A lot of it comes from businesses that operate in this particular city. I will tell you, the money that I have in my campaign comes from everybody within this city or operates for bills in this city. I don't get it from outside the city. I don't get it from outside the area of Florida. It comes directly from the people that live, work, and play in the city of Fort Lauderdale, whether they are lobbyists, developers, whether they are residents, or wherever they are. So again, I think that goes to the broad diversification I bring to the table in building coalitions of people getting things done.
Dean?
Well, I don't think I agree with that quote, because I think that there's a little bit of a history that I have with regard to campaign contributions. I'll give you an example. Back when I ran in 2013 and when I ran again in 2015, a number of developers gave money to my campaign. One in particular was the folks at Bahia Mar. I received over $5,000 from them. It's nice of them to do that. But as you can tell from the history of my vote there and the points of view that I supported in that debate, I clearly was on the side of the people. Because no one's going to buy my vote, no one's going to buy my allegiance. People can donate to my campaign, but that's just because they're hoping that they're going to invest in the future of the city, not so much to buy a vote in the candidate. So while there might be some people in various elections who feel compelled to honor the desires of the donors and to make sure that they're buying a vote, I'm not saying that anybody in this campaign has ever expressed that opinion, but I don't think I can agree with that quote that you follow the money and then you follow the vote, because I don't believe that's necessarily the case.
In that sense, I also agree with Dean in that regard. It's meant to get access from the lobbyists and developers, but it's not buying the vote. In case of point, Dean mentioned Bahia in his case, I'll mention the Galleria in my case. Those lobbyists and the developers donated to my campaign too. I turned that down. I killed the Galleria project. So I think that this is one issue that we might agree on as far as that goes. We have examples of both.
Thank you. Dee, do you want to add anything?
I too participated in killing the Galleria project. I did not believe that the Galleria was appropriate for the city, at least the project that's proposed. In fact, what are we seeing now? We're seeing a total deterioration of our beautiful mall that we've had for over 30 years. And developers, yes, will continue to donate to campaigns, but they've never bought the allegiance of this candidate. And as far as I'm concerned, they should start investing their money in the community rather than in political campaigns, because they have failed to show any measure whatsoever of the vision that this city has tried to fulfill. So whether it be the Galleria, whether it be the Bahia Mar, it's always important to maintain the voice of the people and to be sure that the voice of the people is ultimately fulfilled. Thank you.
Okay, I think that segues nicely into this next question.
I want to know why the floor is so sticky here, Brittany. What happened
I do
before
not
here?
mop as
What
well as
happened here
moderate.
before this? What kind of...
Dean, you've been criticized by Bruce's campaign
Hold on.
for allowing the Victory Fund, National LGBT Interest, to put money and support into your campaign from outside of the region. You held a
Yeah, what
fundraiser
is
in
that?
Miami. What do you say to voters who ask why national groups are involved in your candidacy? And Bruce, I'll ask you that, given that contributions, checks come in to both of your campaigns from all over the place, some through your PACs, can you articulate why it should be of interest to voters that he had a fundraiser in Miami and is being supported by a national group? So we'll start with Dean.
Start with me. Well, he's making the accusation. So, you know, hey, I'm a gay man, okay? Is there a secret about that? So there are people around the country who feel it's important that someone like myself serve in public office and elevate themselves to higher levels of public office. That's their choice. I can tell you right now, they weren't big money raisers, but I appreciate the support. I appreciate the support from around the country. If people from around the country feel that it's important that my candidacy be successful, then I feel that someone's recognizing the efforts that I have made in this city to try to make the quality of life and the goals of our city ultimately fulfilled. Why anyone would take issue with that, I have absolutely no idea. Because I can tell you, if you look at the campaign reports of both of us, all of our donations don't just come from the boundaries of Fort Lauderdale, and there's no reason why they should. But what is important is where the message is, and where the message comes from, and where our goals are stated, and how we're going to fulfill those goals. That's the important thing. So where the money comes from, you know, there's no outside influence, there's no deep state somewhere lurking, trying to make sure that I get elected. Come on, that was a silly suggestion by whoever made it, and I think we need to move on to more serious issues.
I just think it's not so much the organization, it's like the itself, it's where the money came from. And things that come from Washington, D.C., quite frankly, bother me. I think we should have our locals, we're fighting for our city all the time to have our own rights, to have our, and if we lose it to the state, we lose it to the federal government all the time. I think those things need to stay at home. So when you have the influence from outside this area, and outside the state in particular, at the national level, I think that takes away from the home rule that we all want to have in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Look what we can't do in Tallahassee right now. We can't regulate the guns, we can't regulate vacation rentals. All these things have been taken away from us. I'm a big proponent of home rule and what we can do to get done within the city of Fort Lauderdale. It has nothing to do with the organization because it is an LGBTQ organization. That's not the issue. It could be aliens from outer space from Washington, D.C., as far as I was concerned, doing that type of thing. I just don't think it belongs in our local election.
Thank you. Let's talk about the wave.
Oh, by the way, can I state a rebuttal to that? The executive director of the Victory Fund is the former mayor of Houston. She was mayor for 9 years. And let me tell you something, Having her in town and having her talk to me afterwards about the types of issues that Houston had confronted during her 9 years, and having talked about how so many of the things that she read on my pamphlet were exactly the same things she used to have on her pamphlet: infrastructure, traffic, etc., homelessness, affordable housing. We sat down and I said, well, how did you handle these things? So it was a great education for me. The fact that she's now placed in Washington, somehow I don't really see the connection, but the reality is we should all try to learn from as many people as possible. And if the mayor of Houston is coming to my city to talk about our issues, then I embrace that and I welcome that. Anyway.
So listen, you got something outside of Washington, you got something from Washington, D.C. to Houston to Miami Beach. I think that's kind of circular. If you travel around the country, all you need to do is see what's going on in the other areas of the country. You go to Austin, Texas, you go to Nashville, you go to Atlanta, you go to Washington, D.C., you see the same issues. My dad at Houston, quite frankly, and even though I'm glad you spoke with her, has solved all their problems as it relates to transportation.
Well, they're a little flooded right now.
Well, it didn't make any difference. They were behind the eight ball. In fact, that's what led to the devastation of the infrastructure problems to begin with.
Thank you. All right, we are
Next.
still going to talk about the way.
Wait, I have another thing. Is time up yet?
In the recent past, the City Commission did reaffirm its support for the waive. You two voted no, but just prior to that, you both had pledged, Dean in writing and Bruce by his word, that if elected, the first thing, or one of the first things you would do would be to get the city out of its obligation. So given the vote that took place after you made that promise, are you still committed to disengaging from the WAVE project? Bruce?
Yeah, so there's current configuration and form, and it's the uncertain finances, and actually it's uncertain routing into the future. None of those existed a couple of years ago, and everybody supported the way. We're going to have to find some alternate means of transportation to move north and south through our city, to connect the downtown areas, to make a multimodal connection with the Brightline, and also our east and west corridors as we go into the future. What that is right now, I don't know, but the current configuration of the way is not the way to go. I think we need to find some other alternative. Now, how we get out of that is going to be an interesting issue, the problem, and we're going to look for ways to remedy that. And there are ways to do that. Other places in the country have done that. It's going to be an uphill battle. Our federal lobbyists have advised us of that, but I'm willing to take that stand and move forward in that direction if we have to go ahead and do that. We were asked to do it on March 20th, the commission meeting. That was part of the signed pledge, et cetera, and commitment. But at our last, we had a debate at the Homeowner Association meeting, I think, was it last week, on the beach. But anyway, I indicated the commission meeting afterwards we can discuss. I think the March 20th meeting, when the swearing in and a new commission sitting on there, is really going to be an inappropriate time, an unrealistic time to expect us to make that move and have that debate, again, with the public attending and it being heard. So I would think it's going to happen at the next meeting afterwards.
Thank you. Dean?
If I'm elected mayor, it's going to happen the first meeting. We need to get out of the WAVE contract. It makes absolutely no sense. Every time I hear something about the WAVE, it continues to make no sense. And if we wait any longer, we continue to dig ourselves deeper and deeper into this obligation that has already cost us over $20 million. We need to recognize the fact that there are alternative modes of mass transportation, and they come across our desk every single day. Today I met with a vendor who showed us a form of transportation. It's not by rail, it's not with overhead wires. In fact, to some extent, it's even without drivers. We can replicate systems that already exist in other places in the United States. It's not just in China anymore. We have it here, and it's very, very important that we focus on that. I'm very disappointed that the city leaders, the DDA and other stakeholders and other community leaders were all drawn into a concept that continues to point to what I feel is a failure to understand the technologies of today. And we need to move forward quickly. We cannot hesitate, and by voting on the very first meeting sends an immediate signal to those who are partners with us, that is the county and the state, that we mean business and we need to move forward quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Sticking with the topic of transportation, And you're both talking about finding ways for people to get from point A to point B. This reader question or voter question relates to the fact that both of you supported a project which will eliminate 2 lanes on Northeast 4th Avenue from Sunrise Boulevard to north of Fort Lauderdale High School, thus turning a major arterial road with an annual average daily traffic count of 20,000 into a traffic nightmare with only 1 lane in each direction on a road that transports residents countywide to and from downtown Fort Lauderdale, the person said. Can you please explain your support for that project?
Am I first?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a misstatement of fact. The city Transportation and Mobility Department came to the commission and said, we have this idea. We want to couple it with what they're doing in Wilton Manors, in which they're narrowing their main street, Wilton Drive, down to 2 lanes, and they want to continue it down at the city of Fort Lauderdale. The commission uniformly has said, this is not going to work in Fort Lauderdale. And the city staff kept saying, yes it is, and we kept saying, no it isn't. So what we did was, we said, well, just show us what you're talking about. Give us an idea, draw it out, and tell us how you want how this to be put into effect. So we have not approved anything, okay? And secondly, it doesn't go from Sunrise. It goes from north of 13th Street. And even then, it's more like 14th Street, where it's narrowed down. And south of 14th Street is where it narrows, not north. So we have a school there. We have businesses there. We have things that need all 4 lanes. So I can tell, if city staff is listening right now, don't go there, okay? We're choking these neighborhoods with traffic and especially Middle River Terrace and South Middle River. These neighborhoods do not deserve to have the kind of treatment that the Transportation and Mobility Department is trying to impose on them. So it's a mistake to say that I voted for it. I don't think Vice Mayor voted for it.
Was the word.
We supported. We allowed it to. Do I get to finish? We allowed it to move forward to see what they had in mind, but we did not approve anything because holistically the concept in and of itself, it makes no sense.
So my recollection of a lot what Dean had mentioned too, but I think there's some more caveats to that too. If the staff was going to make a presentation to us, it would be an experimental paint-only presentation and would be limited to a certain degree to the areas that Dean talked about. It wouldn't be south of 13th Street. My concern was, since Wilton Manors is doing it, and 13th Street's already narrowed up to 4th Avenue, that's going to create, you have a funnel effect that comes wide open, and that means that 4th Avenue in this area is going to become a speedway. I think it's just a psychological impact. In my experience in traffic enforcement, you're going to see people shooting out of that, making up lost time and speeding down 4th Avenue, creating other particular issues. So whatever the outcome of this is, it has to be, those things have to be taken into consideration. And the other part of it is, it's not city staff demonstrating leadership. Again, it's us demonstrating leadership, yay or nay, show us what you got, and then we do or don't do that. And I'll go on to say, any of these projects we're doing in the neighborhoods and road narrowing, that's part of the transportation issue we'll get to later on, I think they need to be examined on a case-by-case basis. All road narrowing is not a good thing to do. Some is a good thing to do in certain areas for pedestrian safety, bicycle safety. They need to be done on a case-by-case basis. And I would also look to do it on a temporary basis before making them permanent in the future.
Can I just follow up on that? See, and it's true. You know, we said, give us an idea of what you're planning to do. But what scares me is this paint on the road thing. Now, I don't know if any of you have been to Las Olas Boulevard, but it looks like some abstract design with someone who has had a few too many at Rocco Tacos, and it's some green and yellow and white paint came up with this design that makes no one happy. So I'm just hoping that when they come back to us with their schematics, that we don't find ourselves doing a dance from lane to lane, trying to get through and realizing that this is our neighborhood, we need to take it back.
Based on that statement, I agree with you. That's not going to happen like that. It's too much coloration.
Okay. Totally new topic, marijuana. I didn't have time to ask this in the last debate, but readers, voters have been asking, Fort Lauderdale has not yet decided how to address access to medical marijuana. It did pass overwhelmingly in Fort Lauderdale. If elected, do you support, or how would you address the issue of the dispensaries in the city limits? I think it's Dean's
We have addressed it in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and we have come up with a preliminary scheme as to how we're going to permit it. And I believe it works out where there's basically one dispensary per district, if I'm not mistaken. The reason why we're so tentative about it is because the legislature is still in session. And we know that the state legislature is quite apt to try to co-opt our ability to make legislation on things that it chooses to make. It chooses this prerogative to say that cities do not have the home rule on this particular issue. They've done it on vacation rentals, they've done it on guns, so now they want to do it on marijuana dispensaries. You are absolutely correct that given the vote, we had overwhelming support in the city of Fort Lauderdale to allow for medical marijuana dispensaries. So the city has come up with its own idea. It's sitting there waiting for ultimate passage until such time as this legislature convenes, and then we'll know what our ability is to move forward and try to put a regulation on it.
Dean's absolutely correct, and of course it is the will of the people. I think it passed statewide by a huge margin, so this thing has to happen. But just a little correction of the record, deliveries are being made to people. So people in the city of Fort Lauderdale do have access to this and other dispensaries and deliveries to homes. And actually, you go to clinics or doctors now in other areas, they will ask if you want this for pain. So that's an ongoing process. It's still available. We did want to limit it. I also agreed to limitation because I don't want to see us going the route of the pill mill industry. I don't want to see us going the route of 9,000 gas stations. Actually, in my district, I only have so many mattress stores along Farrell Highway. So there's certain things I think aesthetically and business-wise, you want to diversify your economy. You don't want to have those things just run down in a particular area. So I think we are in agreement on that. And again, it gets back to we're treading on thin ice because we don't want to lose our ability, to have home rule on this particular issue. And I don't think everybody wants them in there. All neighborhoods don't want them. Some flat out. I can tell you, say, I don't want it anywhere close to me, even if it's allowed to be in that particular area. So while there's a hue and cry and a vote to get that done, the other side is not my backyard, do I want those stores? So we'll see what happens in the future.
Thank you. All right, should we talk more about mattress stores, or no?
If anybody has a solution to answer that, please let me know.
I think there should be a limitation, like 1,500 feet between each mattress store. Federal Highway seems to have a plethora of mattress stores. So they're mostly in your district.
I like residents too, but
2 years ago, the city manager laid out to you and your colleagues a report entitled Challenges with Pipe Breaks and Maintaining Aging Infrastructure. Since that date, though, millions of gallons of sewage spilled into the city's neighborhoods and waterways, and the commission, with both of you on it, continued unanimously approving more high-rises and removing water sewer money to spend it on other things. Are you responsible for the delay in responding to this critical need, and what can we expect going forward if you're elected mayor?
I think I'm first in that. Yeah, I accept some responsibility for that, but I'll tell you why, because we were basing our decisions on the data that we had available to us at the time. Every 2 years, we do a bond rating report for our infrastructure. It rates our water sewer systems. In 2014, 2016, and again in 2018, the studies came back from engineering firms that are part of that study that said that we get a AA+ rating for our infrastructure. So we have some issues, yeah, we do have some issues, but not to the degree that that something popped up. So to that degree, I accept the responsibility in that regard, but I'm acting on the data that's provided for us at the time. And we go back to studies back as early as I think 2007, the same type of data was provided to the commissions back then and going forward. Then we have all of a sudden stuff burst all over the place, so we need to fix that. Where I got upset was when we had those issues going on and we had identified our staff, rightfully so, had identified 11 or 13 top priorities, and we had some money set aside to address those 11 or 13 priorities, and it wasn't getting done. That was identified as late as March of last year in a memo from our staff to our city, to all of us and our city manager. Nothing got done. At the end of August, when we had a joint workshop with the Budget Advisory Board and the next afternoon with our Infrastructure Task Force, I took the steps with our city manager and city attorney, because they always argue with each other whose responsibility it is, and put them on probation together. Let's get something done about this. They instituted Go Big Go Fast back then, and they started to work in August, for example, and by December, the one pipeline that reaped all that havoc in Tarpon River, which actually started in Doors and Dorsey, under the river to Riverside, and into the Tarpon, was repaired. That carries 30% of the sewer to the city of Fort Lauderdale. That is operating, and we have a plan going forward into the future to address that. I hope we have some more on this.
Okay.
Yeah, can I have 20 minutes? And really, I'm being facetious, but the reality is that this is a very complicated issue. So obviously, we have been shortchanging ourselves for the last 10 years by stealing $106 million out of our water and sewer fund and putting it into the general fund. What does that tell you? It tells you that we have not been balancing our budget, and we've been taking from water and sewer, putting it in our general fund just to cover expenses. So when it finally came to roost, in last year, when the Reese report was given to us and we're told that so many of our infrastructure assets were to the point of calamitous failure. It's our water treatment plant, 5-Ash, Lorimar, all these places that provide fresh water or that treat sewage water had all been put at risk. So this past year, when we had the opportunity to finally say no to taking out that water, the money from the water and sewer fund, I voted no. I mean, the Reese report was very clear. I was the only one to vote no, because I realized enough was enough. We needed to finally face the reality. Okay, this rating that we got, this A+ rating that we got, talking about the quality or the status of our infrastructure, had nothing to do with the quality of the pipes or the pump stations or anything like that. It regarded the ability of the city to be able to draw money from its ratepayers in order to pay for any infrastructure needs. So yeah, we have the ability to keep raising your water rates all the time. And that's the misnomer and the fraud that was put on the community by the city staff.
Yes, go ahead.
So I approved the budget. Actually, Dean approved every budget. He's been here except the last one, and he stated why he did. Fair enough. I understand where he's coming from. But when I had that budget advisory board meeting, asked for us to take away that ROI and move it into the infrastructure fund and look for other sources of income to replace it. At that time, it was a $16 million hole. I got no support. I even, for the sake of political suicide, said maybe we have to raise our DeLorean. Got no support again from anybody in the commission. You can't take $16 million out of the budget all at once and expect everything to be the same. You're going to impact public safety, you're going to impact our parks and rec, you're going to impact a lot of other areas. So you have to gradually wean yourself away from that particular thing, which we started in 2012, I think, and Dean's been there the whole time too. But you have to also approve a budget. You can't just all of a sudden your household say, we're not going to approve a budget. We have other things to fund and other operations to run. So I approved the budget with the caveat also that we wouldn't fill, there was one of the caveats, we wouldn't fill some of the vacant positions in the budget. There was $2 million savings there, which I indicated to the city manager had to be dedicated towards infrastructure improvement, or until we had a better handle on where we're going forward with the infrastructure repair. So yeah, I approved the budget. You have to have a budget, and we move forward on that with those caveats.
Dean, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, you have to approve a budget, but it doesn't just happen in one night. So you had many times in which you can talk with the city manager, you talk with a finance division, you make them aware ahead of time that this is not acceptable, that these budget figures, this is what they call return on investment, mumbo jumbo, is integral to trying to pull together a balanced and fair budget that makes sense. So if over these years we knew we were continuing to take money out of the water and sewer fund, and we knew that we had reached a point where the state is overlooking our conduct with a consent order and said, if you don't clean up your act, literally, we're going to fine you. So you knew all this stuff was happening, and you still took $16 million out of the water and sewer fund. We had to be able to make cuts in other areas. We had to be able to offer less to our employees. We had to be able to find ways to ensure that we had a balanced budget without having to put at risk the health and safety of our community with a treatment plant that was at risk, with a water plant that was at risk, and with a pump station that was at risk. I think we all understand the
Cowbell.
necessity of that. Thank you.
Sorry.
I would like to keep on going for a second. Unless you want to do that.
Okay.
Because I think it gives a great, here's the big
But he gets
difference.
another stab
I
at it.
don't know. You just heard.
We could be here all night.
You just heard about how this should have been done, that should have been done, should have been done, with no offers for alternatives. Again, I offer those alternatives. To go big, go fast. I offer to take us away from ROI. We raise the ad valorem, we do this. No alternatives to that. You save money in other parts of the budget. No recommendations for to save money in other parts of the budget. And I'll tell you right now, I would never take it away from public safety, especially in these trying times. So you have to be able to identify solutions to the problems and take action, not just talk about the problems.
Steve, anything?
I've talked enough.
Okay. It sounds like what we might be hearing is that you both support stopping the removal of those monies, and possibly we would see a property tax increase if you were mayor. Is that correct?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Forget about it. No and no. I'm not in favor of continuing to take out the money from the water and sewer fund again. That return on investment myth is not appropriate and it needs to stop. But at the same time, there are other places from which we can draw, from which we can cut in order to be able to balance the budget that we need to balance. And we don't have to always just wring our hands and say, woe is me, woe is me. There's no answer. Because for many, many years, we never took money out of the water and sewer fund. It's only when we started spending too much, started maybe hiring, maybe paying pensions beyond what we could afford. Maybe it's those types of things that we need to look back at and say, how are we going to change these things? Why should we be spending money in certain areas that we can't afford as a city? We obviously have misplaced priorities in this community, and we need to go back. And that's why we need new leadership. That's why we need a new administration. That's why, should I be elected mayor, we need to find replacements for people who know how to handle budgets like that we have here in the city.
So here we go again. We have the vision. You established that vision back 5 years ago. That vision is what we work on. That vision creates a 5-year strategic plan we work on. That strategic plan creates an annual action plan that we work on, in conjunction with the annual neighborhood surveys, where you tell us what you want us to do. That's what we budget for. So where are you going to, I'm anxious to find out where these savings are going to be coming from. It's again, to say, we'll do it, we can save it. I think, quite frankly, if we go and wean away from the ROI, we're going to have to raise some more revenues someplace else. One of the things I like to try to do, and it's an uphill battle, is in our tourism industry, our bed tax. 50% of that bed tax comes from the city of Fort Lauderdale and goes to the Commission of Business Bureau of the county. We see none of that. We see none of that money. I'd like to see us get some of that money back to try to address these particular issues. And I think that's one way to go. And it goes as far as water rates go, that we talked about here, and I know everybody's concerned about that. Our water rates in the city of Fort Lauderdale remain the one-third lowest of all municipalities in Broward County. And the bond rating,
Try convincing our people that.
Yeah.
We'll show you the data. I mean, data does not lie when I'm talking about that type of revenue there. So yeah, it goes up, others are going up too. And the bond issue, the bond revenue that we just passed to be able to fund the infrastructure, that's built within the current water rate structure thing. No more money comes within that aspect of the funding.
Thank you. Let's talk about growth again for a minute.
What?
Growth. The city's growth. You both have lived in the city for a long time and seen the changes. And, you know, a holistically healthy city has great parks and recreation and public art and a good quality of life. Are you happy, in general terms, with how the city has grown? And you can go anywhere with that question. Bruce?
That's a loaded question, because here we go. Yeah, I've been here since 1964, and I like to tell people when I first moved down here, actually my father retired from the Air Force, moved the family down here, and we moved quite a lot in the north part of the city. There was cows grazing at Dixie and Commercial. There was no bridge over the Commercial Boulevard. Houses in this city were just being built just north of the country club on Bayview Drive. Where I live now, Imperial Point didn't exist. The Imperial Point Hospital was I think Imperial Point Drive-In at the time. So we've seen a lot of changes over the years. We've seen us go from spring break times to where we are currently in the city of Fort Lauderdale on the beach. But right now, we have a 3.4% unemployment rate. We have the bond rating with the water sewer infrastructure that I mentioned to you. We have 17 new parks opened in the past 9 years, 25 parks refurbished. We're continuing to move to improve, to address the issues you bring to us within that vision and those annual surveys to make this the place where we enjoy the highest quality of life and deal with the headwinds we've just been talking about, the infrastructure and the traffic issues. We can deal with those things and still maintain the quality of life. People are coming down here. They're going to continue to move into the Miami-Fort Lauderdale metropolitan area. You look at actually Palm Beach, the Southeast Florida metropolitan area, it's the 6th largest in the country. So if we were to stack up against Chicago, New York, LA, we are the 6th largest in the country. And with that issue, with that growth, and with that quality of life that we have here, people continue to come down here. We're going to continue to have to address particular issues. I'd like to say it again and again, I know it's old saying, but we can talk and chew gum at the same time.
Dean?
Honestly, I'm not happy with the growth of this city. I'm happy that we're growing, but I'm not happy at the pace, and I'm not happy at the fact that the city has not kept up with the pace that it has allowed to happen. When I was first a commissioner back in 2003, I was a slow growth commissioner then. And during that term, not one new project was approved. Not because we shouldn't have new projects, but because we were trying to catch up with the growth that had already been approved. My predecessor continued to allow building after building being approved, and we now see the results of that. The W, the Ritz-Carlton, the Las Olas Beach Club, all those are already in the pipeline. How could I possibly consider approving any more buildings? So when I returned to the commission in 2013, I saw that, again, we were starting on the same path of approving more and more buildings. But at the same time, we had to redefine what was growth, and what was good growth and what was not good growth. Clearly, the beach has been overwhelmed with growth. And when the Bahia Mar was approved, it was an anathema to, I think, to the quality of life of our community. 651 units on the beach in a very fragile environment where traffic, infrastructure, just the whole idea of having all that compacted into one area, putting at risk the future of the boat show, all of that. The point is that, yes, it's great to build the nice urban center that we have downtown. I am going along with that. But the fact is the city has not kept up the pace in trying to maintain the infrastructure issues that go along with that. So it's a mixed bag, Brittany, and I think that we need to take a pause right now and see exactly where we're going forward. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little less time for this one because I think this will be the last question before you wrap up. 1 minute answers on this one, please. But
Does that mean we're going to hear the cowbell soon?
yes. Just in general terms, let's zoom out a little bit and talk about leadership. How would you describe your leadership style? Dean, I think it's yours.
Really? I think leadership is a combination of things. First of all, leadership has to consist of someone who has vision, someone who has experience, and someone who has the gumption to make sure it happens. But more importantly, it's all about trying to get along with the people that you work with, trying to build consensus, trying to find common ground, and hoping that you'll be able to move forward on an issue that more than just one or two can collectively agree upon. I haven't been very successful this past few years, a lot of 4-1 votes, but let's put it this way. I felt I had the vision, I felt I had the gumption, I felt that I had the people behind me. And when I think about all the hundreds of people that have come out with regard to certain issues, I feel that I represented the people's voice, and I feel that should I become mayor, should I become your mayor, the process will continue of trying to build consensus, trying to listen to the folks of this community, and trying to make sure that the next commission moves forward in the city. Thank you.
Bruce?
I think leadership does involve vision, but more than that, it involves the ability to listen and the ability to empower people to go to work to implement that vision. So we have your vision, we have our employees and you to help us implement that vision. And as my career is in law enforcement and as your police chief for 6.5 years, I obviously demonstrated that ability to lead the major department in the public safety arena. And it's not easy. I'll tell you that right now. About 80% of the time in dealing with issues there, have to deal with personnel issues. Make sure everybody is focused on that vision to move forward, make sure they have the right training to get things done. I build coalitions. You have to do that. I'm not a finger pointer. I'm not a blamer. People will make mistakes. I don't dwell on those mistakes. I don't have the time to dwell on those mistakes. We have to continue to move forward with the vision, and that vision is your vision. I can sit up here and say I have this great vision of what the city of Fort Lauderdale can look like, but I, quite frankly, say that is your vision, and leaders need to be able to implement that, and they need to be able to make sure that we go in that direction.
Thank you. All right, now it's wrap-up time, so you each have 2 minutes to just tie up any loose ends or give your campaign pitch or whatever you want to spend, you can sing. However you want to spend those 2 minutes is up to you.
Go ahead,
Bruce.
But thank you again for the opportunity. It's, I think Dean will agree with us, it's been a long campaign, and it's been a lot of these meetings, but we welcome those meetings. I do too, because it gives us a chance. I don't have any already voted out there or who's changed their minds since you've seen us at all these events, but still we keep coming because we want to be able to listen to what you have to say and participate in these events. That's what our democracy is about, and that's what our city of Fort Lauderdale is about. Again, I keep going back to that vision that you created, and our job is to implement that vision, to demonstrate the leadership to get that done for you. That's what I bring to the table. That's kind of a takeoff on what we just talked about, but I think that should be stressed. And I also think that nowadays, one of the strong points that I bring to the table is the ability to deal with public safety. We are in trying times. Our times have changed tremendously over the past 9 years since I've been on the commission. And when you look around the country, even look in our locale, I hate to admit it, things don't look very rosy as far as public safety goes. And I think that's what I will bring to the table. That remains the first and foremost priority of government at any level, at the federal, state, or local level. And I promise to deliver on those issues related to public safety. And I'll go back to that as in our police department, I think you'll see right now, the rank and file in our agency demonstrate looks like the community they represent. That's one of the proud achievements I have. Back in 2003 and 2007, we were able to create the lowest crime rates in the city of Fort Lauderdale since keeping track in '73. I got the city of Fort Lauderdale and the police department out from under a consent decree by the ability to hire more people of color, promote the first 2 female assistant chiefs. Chief Adler became the first African-American chief in the city of Fort Lauderdale. I'm proud of those achievements to create that level playing field. That's what I think I bring to the table again, the leadership ability to bring everybody in our great diverse community and all those towns together to implement the vision that you want us to do.
Thank you. Dean?
It has been an interesting campaign. I've learned a lot. I think we both have learned a lot. And I think the most important thing about this campaign is the fact that this community has never been as engaged as I've seen this time around. I've been a civilian in previous mayoral campaigns, and I've watched the candidates come before the people, but never before have I seen this much engagement. I mean, tonight, I figured there'd be 8 people in the room. How many times have you heard us say the same thing over and over again, right? But you people, everybody in our community, all our neighbors, we're sitting here side by side, wondering what are we going to say tonight, and how important it is that the message that you hear tonight is a continuation of what you've heard over the last several months. But some new things have come up, and they're a little frightening. But this community is very positive in its vision. Despite the things that have happened in the past, we're trying to move forward and make sure that we are survivors. And as survivors, a community like ours knows how to pull together, share ideas, and make sure that we come up with constructive answers. I know a lot of people got upset when they started seeing the sewage trucks going back and forth for all these many months at a cost of $15, $16 million. I know that people got very upset whenever we have traffic jams and there's no way out of how we're going to pull our way out of that. I know that people get very upset when they see that their leaders are not able to fulfill their vision. For example, why did this commission vote for the wave? Why did this commission vote for the EMR? Why did this commission do so many things that this community didn't want to see or hear? I want to be the people's mayor. I want to listen to your voice. I have been listening for the last 5 years, and I'm telling you, your voice is not being heard. And as your mayor, I want to be with you. We're going to work together, and we're going to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you.